I'm wondering if, because of the number of candidates and the number of seats available, are you preparing for the job any differently than you were before? Are you campaigning any differently than you were before?
No, to both. As to preparing for the job, I think I've been preparing for the job for 25 years. And I've been continuing to do the same things. And experience-wise, since the primary, I have been involved in a capital homicide case. We had an Atkins hearing, which, as you're probably aware, Atkins was the United States Supreme Court decision that said that in the United States, the mentally retarded will not be executed. We had a case of pretty much first impression in the Commonwealth, right here in Luzerne County, where we established a record, and I was very proud to participate in questioning and cross-examining nationally recognized experts, and that transcript is being used throughout the country. I have been told by Dr. Hagan, who testified for us, in redefining that issue throughout the country. We took a capital case to verdict. I was involved in another homicide that resulted in a plea to guilty but mentally ill. I've been involved in a criminal trial list that had, I think I had 70-some cases. I had 2 of my private custody cases go to hearing that settled on the day of hearing. So just in that regard, experience-wise, from the primary till now, that's what I've been doing. As far as campaigning has been exactly the same, to get to as many people as we can, to let them know who I am and what I hope to do and why I want to be a judge.
70-some cases since the primary?
I think, no, well, we get case lists, and so you're responsible for however many cases. And I believe my September trial list had 70-some cases. Now, Mark, those were not all disposed of. Right. I want to make clear that those were not, that those weren't all resolved. They're
still on your to-do list.
But I'm sure when I get over there today, they'll be on my October list, the ones that were not done.
Okay. A couple of questions about home rule, and this was actually submitted to us by a reader who had questions about what's going to happen in 2012 with the new Luzerne County Council and how that will interact with the judiciary. Individual wants to know, if elected, would you work with the new county manager and county council to reduce the county's costs? Specifically wants to know about sharing tip staffs and clerks with other judges, and do you think that's a good idea or not?
Do you know, I think that's kind of 2 questions. Okay. The reducing costs, I have absolutely no problem, and as a matter of fact would advocate anything that we could do to reduce costs in the county. But I don't know if sharing tip staff and law clerks would be the answer. That what we have seen go on in the past years, I think that we need to ensure that our chambers, if fortunate enough to be elected, are places that you have people surrounding you who you trust implicitly, that they are not political holdovers from some other administration, and that they are people that you know, that you value their opinions, and that you would trust to have the confidences of your chamber around you.
Okay. On a similar note, this individual would like to know, the Home Rule Committee has established an ethics and personnel policy. Now, whether the new council actually approves that policy as it is or changes it remains to be seen. But do you think that members of the court should fall under that personnel policy?
Well, as you said, the speculative nature of it makes it hard to comment. And one of the things that I noted when I looked at it was that the ethics portion that is incorporated into the personnel policy by reference, that everyone who has the personnel code policy must acknowledge the ethics policy, that in their, I don't know what in their flow chart, that the final decider is the Court of Common Pleas. And I don't know if it is a wise decision to sign the exact same document when that separation of powers is so absolutely important. I will tell you, however, that I endorse, and I would work with the unified judicial system to have the courts of common pleas of the entire Commonwealth embrace the theories that are expressed. Anti-nepotism. I wholeheartedly, and I will give my pledge right now to an anti-nepotism policy that I will not hire any family member or extended family member as identified in the Home Rule, by the Home Rule Committee. The taking of gifts. The way I have run my campaign has made clear that I don't think that we should be taking anything from anybody who's going to be in front of us. So I would encourage not only Luzerne County judges, but as you know, the courts of common pleas actually cover the entire Commonwealth, that we're all in the same system. And I think that we not only have to ensure the integrity of the system in Luzerne County, but overall. So in answer to the question, I can't say without seeing it whether I would, but I would certainly, if I felt that I would be precluded from signing it because it would jeopardize that separation of powers, then I would work to have a similar or mirror document for the court system in the entire Commonwealth to follow.
Of the candidates we talked to, everyone talks about their experience, fairness, impartiality. What qualities aside from those will you bring to the bench that you think would make you a particularly good judge?
Well, I just think that, I don't know if temperament is included in that, but I do believe that that I have it's almost awkward to talk about yourself like this, but I believe that I'm very even-tempered. Slow to, I don't have immediate reactions. I will not have a knee-jerk reaction to anything. I make no presumptions about anyone or anything based on appearance or on anything else. And I believe temperament, and I would encourage you, the voters, to ask anyone who knows me, anyone who I've been before in those courtrooms with, if that's in fact true.
Can you expand on temperament in the courtroom in regards to jurors, in regards to perhaps first jurors and then attorneys? For example, if you thought an attorney was being unprofessional, how would you deal with that as a judge?
Well, if I felt it by unprofessional, do you mean?
Behaving the way they shouldn't.
Okay. Well, I would not do anything in the courtroom that would, if the jury was already there, that would do anything to jeopardize the case moving forward. But I would certainly suspend proceedings and take control of the courtroom, have an on-the-record, yet not in front of the jury, discussion with that attorney, with the other attorney present. If I felt it rose to the level of something that violated our code, the attorney's code, then I would certainly make appropriate reporting requirements. As far as the jury goes, and you know, Joe, I think the best way to control a courtroom is to be the most confident person in the room, and the only way to do that is to be the most prepared person in the room, and to instill in that jury and in the people before you that you're prepared, that you know the file, that you have anticipated arguments, that you have been prepared for those arguments, that nothing surprises you, and that there's nothing you can't handle.
Thank you.
What would you say has been your greatest accomplishment in your legal career?
Do you know, I don't know if there's, I think that my career as a whole I'm very proud of. I think that I'm very proud of my representation of my private clients, that I have had thousands of people trust me to represent them in their most difficult times, because nobody goes to alert, nobody calls me up to go, hey, life's great, I'm having a great day today. So I think that the confidence that they have expressed in me, I think the confidence, I have served under 5 district attorneys, that 5 DAs, Corey Stevens, Jerry Cohen, Peter Polishewski, Dave Lupas, and Jackie Carroll, that 5 of them have trusted me to represent them in courtrooms in this county. So I think that probably that confidence instilled in me by both my individual clients and those DAs is probably what makes me most proud.
Could you describe 1 or 2 cases in which you've been involved that you consider the most significant?
Well, as I just said, I think that the Riccardi case, because it's, I do think that it's groundbreaking in a case of first impression. And it was intellectually challenging, legally challenging. I learned things and that's what's fun about being a lawyer, that you, one day you're learning about farming and how you bale hay, and the next day you're learning about the Flynn effect and how it applies to IQ scores. And then I'll tell you that other cases, and I feel uncomfortable saying names, but just the day-to-day, every representation, when you get those thank you notes from a child or a family that but adoptions are probably the most fun things that you could do.
Have you lectured or taught in the law?
I have. It's been a while. I don't remember the years, but I did teach constitutional law at King's College for a year. And then at LCC, I taught in the paralegal program. For many years, I taught legal research. I think I taught legal writing, or they may have been combined. And I taught their paralegal family law program.
Have you received honors, prizes, awards, other forms of recognition relevant to law?
Well, I've been recognized by Legal Services for volunteering there. But other than, I don't recall any. I mean, like if I spoke somewhere and got a little plaque or something, but nothing.
I want to ask you a whole bunch of questions in a row now that kind of get toward experience.
Okay.
Well, we'll start off with, you consider yourself full-time practicing the law currently?
Oh, yes.
Approximately how many hours per week? If you're not campaigning prior to your campaign, how many hours were you devoting to the practice?
Yeah, that's almost impossible. If you're doing if you're in the middle of a trial or in the middle of that trial list, you might literally do 70, 80 hours a week. If it's, I'm at my own office and it's just day-to-day things, maybe 40, 45.
And I'm going to ask you a bunch of questions, and these all pertain to within the last 5 years, what you've been doing for the last 5 years. If you could tell us percentage of your what percentage of your litigation was civil as compared to criminal? Can you break it down? 80-20?
Dean, I would say it's probably half and half. I really would. I would say, and maybe the best way to do this is to say that my private practice for the past 5 years has been pretty much exclusively domestic litigation. I've done a few powers of attorney and simple wills for folks, but it's been almost exclusively domestic litigation, which, as you know, is divorce, custody, support. I'm trying to think if in the past 5 years if I have done a termination. I don't know if in the past 5 years I've done a termination of parental rights. Excuse me, although I have one pending right now. And then I would say the other half is all through the DA's office, criminal prosecution.
Okay. In the past 5 years, how many civil jury trials have you tried to verdict?
I have not tried any civil jury trials. I have done, well, maybe I'm anticipating the question, but
civil
in my
bench.
Yeah, civil bench. At least four. At least four.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I'm not a statistics keeper, so
I'm just trying to get a gauge.
Okay.
It's rough numbers. But.
Okay, because okay.
Go ahead. No.
No, well, because as a very young lawyer, and actually the Times Leader did an article about this back in 1990, maybe 91. That I don't keep stats because I had an ethics professor at Notre Dame who kind of discouraged that. Who said, you know, if you're worried about what your batting average is, then you might be hesitant to take the tough cases. So I kind of just worry about the case I'm doing now and don't worry about those numbers. So I apologize for not having these numbers readily available to you.
That's okay. Thank you for the explanation also. A couple more, just going to test to see if number of criminal jury trials you tried to verdict again in the last 5 years.
At least 1, 2, 3, 4. I'd say about, again, I'd say 5. I could go back and get more specific numbers if you wanted, but okay.
Yeah, we're just looking 5, 15, or 50 to give us.
Okay.
Criminal bench trials.
5 years, right? Probably just criminal bench trials, probably just 1, and we actually did that by stipulation.
Approximate number of hearings, civil or criminal, in front of the district justice.
I couldn't even guess, because in central court, we had central court in that 5-year period. So I'm going to say hundreds, easily hundreds.
Any cases in the last 5 years presented to a bankruptcy judge, U.S. bankruptcy judge?
No.
Any cases presented before a workers' compensation judge?
In the past 5 years, no.
Number of uninsured motorist cases you've tried in the past 5 years?
None.
Anything that I didn't ask about that you think is important for us to know as we consider the numbers, but I think you made a good point already with your ethics professor at Notre Dame. But are there things that if we're asking all these questions of the candidates, and some are going to be higher and some are at other areas because of the nature of their practices, obviously.
Right.
Is there anything that we...
Well, a couple of things. First of all, as to the how many jury cases have you taken to verdict, I think that it's also important for you and the voters to know that there have been, I can't even begin to tell you how many cases we have been in the room with a jury ready to be picked, and which you have done the exact same amount of work in preparing, issue identification, pre-trials, that they have come and said, okay, we'll plead to the F1. Well, you're not going to go, nope, I want a jury trial. We're not taking that plea to that F1. So I think that it's important for everybody to know that most of the work goes on before you get into that room, and you only get the plea to the F1 because the other side has pushed you to that point to see if you're ready, to see if you know, to see if your witnesses are going to show up. So I can't tell you how many times that has happened. And also, I'm trying to think in the past 5 years, I argued before the Superior Court in Harrisburg on a case, and I think that that's important because you then review a record and are challenging, well, I was responding, so the other side was challenging a judge's determination.
Excuse me, it was F1?
Pardon?
F1, you referred to F1.
Oh, a felony one, I'm sorry.
Okay.
I'm so sorry.
Changing gears now, but I should point out we're asking these questions of all the candidates. So
Okay. Oh, could I back up 1 second with Joe? They weren't all F1s.
No.
2 of them were F1s. Some were like whatever the highest charge on the information was, is what the plea would be to. Not. I just don't want to make it sound like every case I have they plead to an F1. It's not. That's not what I meant. Okay. Sorry.
I'm not going to make you go back on Flynn effect, though.
Where was I?
I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Questions, I don't want you to be offended by any of these questions. They're being asked of all the candidates. So,
Okay.
have you ever withdrawn from a case because you disagreed with a client?
Once I withdrew from a case because a client just wasn't getting back to me at all, and the case was moving forward, and I was concerned that I couldn't adequately represent that person. Excuse me. Excuse me. And once I declined to take a case because I disagreed with something. But yeah, that was the only time I think I withdrew, was because they didn't get back to me at all.
Have you ever been sued by a client?
I was involved in one lawsuit. I can't tell you how many years ago that was. When I was at Fendler and Associates, everybody in the firm was sued from a case that was another person's in the firm. I did sit in on I was involved in the trial for one limited issue, but that case was dismissed.
And outside of that, have you ever been sued, not by clients, but have you ever been sued?
Nope. No. Oh, once, I don't know if you're aware of this, that sometimes, like if there's an estate that nobody has raised an estate, when you're a young lawyer, they'll try to give you experience, or back then, I don't know if they're still doing this. So I was named as administrator of an estate at one point, and they do that just because they have to have somebody to sue. They have to have a person. So once I was named administrator of an estate through orphans court so that the bank could sue the estate so that they could get my, so technically I was named as the administrator, but that was not me. So I was a named, you have to be on. Like, you asked. I know. And that's really scary when the sheriff shows up going, I have this, what? Oh my God.
We know.
Thank you for that explanation. Have you ever been found to have made a false statement or an omission or been accused of being dishonest, unfair, or unethical?
Not that I'm aware, not to me.
Has your license to practice law ever been suspended or revoked?
Never.
Questions from the group at this point? Does anyone have anything? I'm going to change gears a little bit then, and the next line of questions are assuming that you're successful in November and you have the job, and I just want to understand the thought process a little bit. If you're on the bench, under what circumstances do you feel it would be appropriate for the courts to seal court files or court proceedings? When would you be inclined to do that?
Well, when it's required by law, well, juvenile matters, adoptions, dependencies, and then if there's a civil case that there's an ongoing criminal investigation, then those matters must be sealed. But I will tell you, I would err on the side of an open system rather than a closed. I can't think, Mark, of a time that, I mean, if the integrity of the process was going to be somehow compromised, or if someone's health or safety or welfare was going to be compromised, I'm trying to think of a specific example, but I would be guided by the law on what would be open and would presume that the public would have a right to know. Which I think was the intent of our, going way back to our founding fathers, is the open system.
Same presumption. You're in the job. What factors would you consider when granting and setting bail amounts for defendants? What do you believe should be the primary consideration?
Bail is, everyone except a homicide defendant is entitled to bail, and bail must be reasonable and affordable, and I'm not just under the circumstances. And so I would consider the, has this defendant failed to appear in the past? What is the prior criminal record? What is this defendant's, his or her prior history? Is the nature of the offense such that you would anticipate that there would be, proximity to a victim that might encourage the defendant to flee? Those are the kinds of things that I would consider.
And what about issues that you would consider regarding alternative sentencing for nonviolent offenders? What goes into the decision-making process when you're thinking about that?
Well, in any sentencing, I think that we just remember that the intent of the criminal justice system is to deter crime, to punish for criminal behavior, and to rehabilitate. And I would be guided on each and every case as to how we could best accomplish those goals. And if you have a nonviolent offender who might benefit from, well, let me answer it this way. I'm very proud of the DA's office that they have participated. They've set up many alternative programs, drug court, mental health court, the youth aid panels in the juvenile system. And I think that that philosophy would follow through, how we could best serve all three of those goals of the criminal justice system with each individual defendant.
I'm going to switch gears, but are there questions from the group? Sheena, you've been quiet.
Just getting the feel to get back
Maybe the first thing Monday morning was not a good choice to come.
Campaign contributions. Go back and check here. said this year you expected to spend between $20,000 and $25,000 for the primary. Is that, I don't have the records in front of me, is that about where it fell?
It came about around there, yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
What do you expect for the general?
Probably about 30, 35 maybe.
To spend.
Great.
And not taking campaign contributions from lawyers?
I am not, or their household members.
Has that been an issue at all? How do you talk when a friend who's a lawyer, and you have lots of friends that are lawyers, when they say, I'd like to give you money, what do you say to them?
That I thank you for your support, and I would be honored if you would put a sign in your yard or wear a lapel pin, but I am not taking financial contributions from lawyers, and I have not had anybody offended by it.
Just a hypothetical. What if the person works in a firm but isn't an attorney? Does that make a distinction for you?
Do you know, I have not had that issue, but no, I don't. I say I would put them under the umbrella of lawyer, because, and Mark, getting back to it's like, and I've said this before to you, but I really do believe that we do have to change the way we do things for people to believe that we are changing the system. And the home rule, the personnel policy that you talked about before, that makes very clear you can't accept a gift, you can't accept anything once you are in office. But I think that we need to take this step further and say we're not taking them from anybody who's going to appear before us before.
Okay. I think that takes care of the questions I had. Is there any question from the group?
I just had one that we asked some of the others too. You spent a lot of time out this summer, obviously talking to people. When the candidates were here in the spring, almost every one of them said that people were just telling them we need change and we need to clean this up, all that stuff. Now, Mark had a much more pointed question this time from a reader. Did you get any other kind of feedback from people when you were out talking to them, you know, specific, anything that surprised you that was on people's minds that they were looking for from candidates?
Ellen, what surprised me, I think, was, and I used this term, I think, later on in the primary, but I think that the people of Luzerne County almost have corruption fatigue, that they want to, nobody wanted to talk about what did happen. As you said, they wanted to know what's going to be different, and they wanted to talk about that, and so I was happy to talk about those things. But I think that as a community, we're all ready to be done talking about what happened. Now, we have to be cautious about not forgetting and to be vigilant about making sure that that does not happen again. So I told folks, if I can, I'll tell you some of the things that I told them that I would do. I don't know if you know, the UJS portal system, the Unified Judicial System, has a portal that you could go, but there's an opportunity there for each county to put their judges' county calendars online to access them. I think, and I just checked it recently, I think it's only Carbon and Perry that do it. We should have those on there. People asked me, would I be willing, when these time clocks go in as such an issue, people have asked me, would you be willing to thumb in? Absolutely, I would. I think that all of our opinions should be, every order, anything that you sign, I think should be available to people online. And I've spoken with people in the Prothonotary's office, and they're moving forward with that. There are, I don't know the form numbers, but as you may be aware, judges are required to report, once they are assigned a case, certain activity logs, like why isn't this done or what has happened. Those should be public so that you and the media or anybody who's out, a litigant, could check and say, why is this case taking 5 years to be resolved? I think those things should all be public and open, and so that people could see, not just generically, yes, we're moving forward. These are the exact things we're doing. This is what I'm doing on a daily basis, and you're welcome to check any time, except the things that are, again, sealed by law.
This question doesn't pertain to the job as much as the campaign, but the recent flooding, has that affected the way you feel you should go about campaigning right now, and do you think it's affected the other candidates as well?
Well, I think it's certain, as you probably are aware, Mike Vough was flooded. And I cannot imagine the challenge he and his family are going through trying to deal with the physical, the emotional. So I am sympathetic to what's going on there. I was a kid in '72, I was 10 during that flood, but I remember the anxiety of my parents. But for myself, I don't want to speak for anybody else, but for myself, certainly we're very much trying to be sympathetic to those issues. And I'm choosing not to do, I only did one breakfast in the primary. I'm doing no fundraising because if there is, I don't know, it seems to me it's unseemly to ask people for money when there are people who need money for their household. So if you have disposable income, maybe it should go to that effort.
So the amount of money that you plan to spend in the general, you're funding a lot of that yourself?
Yep, and no, we've had folks who just send the committee. As you know, the candidate cannot solicit nor accept. So when I say we, I mean the committee, who send donations, and we are very grateful. But yeah, we are. And I'm the one who wants the job. I'm the one who should pay for it. I don't. Historically, back when I got my first, and I might have told you guys this the last time, so I apologize for being repetitive, but when I was a very young lawyer and got my first cocktail party invitation, I was very, I have arrived, and this is great, because I didn't even know any lawyers, let alone have family members who were lawyers. And then, what's this? They want however much it was, 100, 150 bucks. And I went to my employer and said, what's this? And that was the first that I realized that this is how people funded campaigns. But I also realized that there was an entire sect of the population that isn't even invited to those cocktail parties, let alone given the opportunity to have them. So I think we need to change how we fund campaigns.
Anything that we did not ask about that you particularly want to mention or emphasize?
I think you've covered it all.
Okay.
I appreciate the opportunity.
We want to thank you for having a conversation with us this morning.